Few things spark the imagination as the unknown. Perhaps one of the greatest mysteries is the answer to the question, are we alone? From the moment we set foot in Charlayan, this question hovers in the background. Reminiscent of the debates held in Amarat by the shades of the ancients, Charlayan scientists debate the possibility of life on other stars. This question moves from the background into the MSQ by the time we arrive at Elpis. While the ancients themselves do not seem to know the answer, Hermes in particular enacts his plan to arrive at the answer not to whether or not life exists at all, but what it lives for and what gives it meaning. In the real world, the question has yet to be answered, but there are some explanations as to why. The Drake equation states that given the number of stars in our galaxy, roughly 200 to 400 billion, and 76 trillion in the observable universe, even if intelligent life evolves on an infinitesimal number of planets, there would still be hundreds, if not thousands of civilizations in our galaxy alone. For instance, 1 in 1 billion worlds has intelligent life. That leaves 200 intelligent species at the low end of the estimation. The fact that we have not heard from or encountered any notable trace of such civilizations now is curious and detailed by the Fermi paradox. If the percentage of intelligent life occurring were high enough, it would produce a significant number of extant civilizations in the Milky Way. This assumes the mediocrity principle by which Earth is a typical planet. Another aspect of the Fermi paradox is the argument of probability. Given intelligent life's ability to overcome scarcity and its tendency to colonize new habitats, it seems possible that at least some civilizations would be technologically advanced, seek out new resources in space, and colonize their own star system, and, subsequently, surrounding star systems. Since there is no significant evidence on Earth or elsewhere in the known universe of intelligent life after 13.8 billion years of the universe's history, there is a conflict requiring a resolution. Some examples of possible resolutions are that intelligent life is rarer than is thought, that assumptions about the general development or behavior of intelligent species are flawed, or, more radically, that current scientific understanding of the nature of the universe itself is quite incomplete. In Final Fantasy XIV, the ancients knew that there was life among the stars, despite having never interacted with it. Hermes launched his Meteon project to make contact with that distant life, with disastrous results. Which brings us to the explanations to the Fermi paradox, the first being the Great Filter. With no evidence of intelligent life in places other than Earth, it appears that the process of starting with a star and ending with advanced explosive lasting life must be unlikely. This implies that at least one step in this process must be improbable. Originated by economist Robin Hanson, the Great Filter argues that the failure to find other life in the observable universe implies that there is something wrong with the Drake equation's hypothesis. He developed a list detailing the milestones most likely needed by a civilization to move past the Great Filter, which would result in interstellar colonization. Hanson's list, while incomplete, describes the following 9 steps in an evolutionary path that results in the colonization of the observable universe. The right star system, including organics and potentially habitable planets, reproductive molecules such as RNA, simple prokaryotic single-cell life, complex eukaryotic single-cell life, reproduction, multicellular life, tool-using animals with intelligence, a civilization advancing towards the potential for a colonization explosion, which is where we are now, and a colonization explosion. According to the Great Filter hypothesis, at least one of these steps, if the list were complete, must be improbable. If it is not an early step or in our past, then the implication is that the improbable step is in our future, and our prospects for reaching step 9, interstellar colonization, are still bleak. If the past steps are the likely filter, then many civilizations would have developed at least to the current level of the human species. This works for some of the civilizations that were introduced to an Endwalker. The Grebulovs succumbed to the environmental collapse of their world, and the plague it brought. The Ea met their end when uncovering the eventual demise and death of the universe writ large. The Great Filter relies predominantly on naturally occurring events for the majority of it to work. Even with a species such as the Omicron conquering and wiping out other races, it would not create the galactic environment we currently find ourselves in Final Fantasy XIV. For an explanation to that, we must explore another theory that explains the Fermi paradox, a much more dreadful theory. The universe is a dark forest. Every civilization is an armed hunter, stalking through the trees like a ghost, gently pushing aside branches that block the path and trying to tread without sound. Even breathing is done with care. The hunter has to be careful, because everywhere in the forest are stealthy hunters like him. If he finds another life, another hunter, angel or demon, a delicate infant or a tottering old man, a fairy or demigod, there's only one thing he can do: open fire and eliminate them. The Dark Forest theory is based on two core tenets: that survival is the primary need of civilizations, and that civilizations continuously grow and expand, but the total matter in the universe remains constant. Based on game theory, the Dark Forest proposes a universe filled with existential terror and absolute silence. If a civilization is discovered by another, they can either destroy them or risk being destroyed by them in the future. Without being able to know for certain, the only sure course of action is to destroy any and all alien life. It's somewhat similar to the prisoner's dilemma, where there is no sure way to know whether other civilizations are peaceful or hostile, or whether they will remain so in the future. While this doesn't sound much like anything we saw in Endwalker, it is nonetheless what happened. The ancients, having developed a way to detect other life using dynamis, sent Meteons out to ask them what gave their lives meaning. While Meteon found civilizations that had succumbed to the Great Filter, there were many others who were heavily influenced by Meteon's arrival and the question of what gives their life meaning. Of those still alive, Meteon's influence is closely correlated with the demise of life. Furthermore, after her transformation, Meteon brought the final days to many more worlds than just Aetheris, as she states that her song would reach even this aether-shrouded star, which implies that it would reach others as well, in addition to working on hastening the heat death of the universe. Without meaning to, Hermes sent a weapon into the stars, one so fearsome that it annihilated any and all life that it encountered. Knowing for certain that Meteon was hostile, we can remove the peaceful column from the table.
Well, so my choice is or death?
Additionally, unless a species had the capability to manipulate dynamis easily, they would have been unable to hide themselves from Meteon's onslaught. With the best of intentions, Hermes sent what amounted to a berserker probe into the sea of stars. Driven to the pits of despair, Meteon systematically eradicated those civilizations that remained, including nearly destroying the ancients and Aetheris itself. In this sense, while Aetheris was not the origin of the Dark Forest, Meteon was, and those civilizations foolish enough to draw her attention would surely have been snuffed out, much like the ancients nearly were. It's rather haunting to think that Meteon's greeting was likely the last thing some civilizations ever heard before she killed them all.
Greetings. Can you hear me? Do not be alarmed. I mean you no harm. I wish only to hear your words, share your feelings, know your thoughts. May we please be friends?